There is no chaos, only patterns we fail to see. This is the Wren Files. He arrived at my office carrying a folded raincoat, a trembling voice, and the smell of old books. "I don't usually believe in omens," he said, sitting stiffly across from me, "but when a clock that hasn't moved in 5 years suddenly chimes at midnight." He paused. "The night after your wife dies, you start questioning everything." His name was Walter Delaney, 78, retired literature professor. His wife, Margaret, had passed 2 nights earlier stroke, sudden and quiet, at 11:08 p.m. No drama, no doctors, just a stopped breath in the chair by the window. "It was peaceful," he said. "She always said she wanted to go like a whisper." Then his voice changed. "But the clock, it wasn't a whisper." He meant the grandfather clock in their parlour, a hulking walnut beast from the 1800s, broken since 1959, according to Walter. He never fixed it, said it felt wrong to force time to move when it had chosen to stop. It just stood there, quiet, decorative. Margaret liked it for the symmetry. But last night, the night after she passed the clock, had struck 12. 3 chimes, he said, loud, heavy. I counted them as if my life depended on it. He'd been alone in the house. No visitors, no wind, nothing that could have jarred the mechanism. "I checked it in the morning," he said. "Still broken, weighed down with dust." "And what made you come here?" I asked. He hesitated, then opened his satchel and pulled out a small velvet pouch. Inside was a winding key. "Margaret kept this in her jewellery box," he said. "I hadn't seen it in years, but this morning it was lying on the table, right beside the clock." I didn't say anything. There's a moment in every case when the facts begin to sound like fiction, and that moment often arrives before the truth does. So I asked the obvious. "Did you wind it?" "No," he said. "I couldn't. The mechanism's rusted shut." "And the jewellery box?" He nodded. "Still locked. I had to fetch the spare key just to open it, which means—" "Someone else opened it first." He nodded again. His hands trembled slightly. "That clock didn't chime to scare me, Mr. Wren. It chimed to tell me something." June found me an hour later, staring at a photo of the Delaneys from 1949. Walter looked younger, but still just as tightly wound. Margaret, hair swept back, wearing a necklace shaped like a typewriter key, had the sort of smile you only see in teachers and liars. "She was a librarian," June said, placing a file on my desk. "Worked at East Croydon Library for 36 years, never remarried, never had children." "She married Walter." June shrugged. "Barely counts, doesn't it?" "Any history of mental health issues?" "None documented. But her personnel record notes 2 periods of sabbatical due to stress." "What kind of stress?" "Doesn't say. Just that she returned quieter. I met Walter at his house that afternoon. It was exactly as I expected. Polished, still and vaguely oppressive. Like time had stopped and decided never to resume. The parlour was at the back, a square room with heavy drapes, and the clock in question. It was tall, old, dusty, yes, but intact. "Mind if I take a look?" He nodded, stepping aside. I opened the clock's glass face. The hands were frozen at 11:08. Same time Margaret died. The gears were unmoving, the mechanism still rusted. But there was something else. A faint smudge of oil, recent, new. Someone had tried to force it. I turned. "Walter," I said, "do you keep a will in the house?" He blinked. Yes, Margaret's too. In the study. Why? I didn't answer. I was already walking. In the study drawer were two documents, his and hers, both signed. Hers had an addendum in pencil. But there was space, a blank spot, torn at the edge, like something had been removed. Walter frowned. That wasn't like that yesterday. I looked at the floor, then back at the clock. Did Margaret have any family? A niece? But they haven't spoken in years. Why? I pointed to the velvet pouch on the table. Because whoever wound that clock didn't do it to send a message. I stepped back. They did it to buy time. Walter's study looked as untouched as the rest of the house. Books still alphabetized, curtains still tied. And yet something was missing, not by accident, but by design. The bottom drawer of his desk had scratch marks. Not the kind you get from age. The kind you get when a drawer is forced open in the dark by someone who shouldn't be there. Are you certain nothing else was taken? I asked. Walter nodded slowly. Just the page. The one Margaret handwrote after the will was signed. A codicil? Yes. She scribbled it a few months ago. Said it wasn't binding, just clarifying. Clarifying what? She didn't say. I leaned forward. And who knew it existed? Only me, and perhaps... He paused. Perhaps the niece. Ellen? June met me outside the registry hall, with a folder in one hand and a grim look in the other. Margaret's niece, Ellen Boyd. Born 1939. Worked in clerical at the Ministry of Labour, then vanished from the record 5 years ago. Vanished? Quit her job. No forwarding address, but... June tapped the folder. She reappeared last month, as a visitor at the Croydon Public Records Office. Looking for what? Property rights. Specifically, inheritance reversion clauses. I didn't swear, but I might have muttered something rude in Latin. We returned to Walter's house after dusk. The street was quiet, too quiet. The kind of quiet you only notice when something is trying not to be heard. The clock was still there, still silent, but its door had been opened. Gently, recently. Inside, the key was gone. June checked the side garden. I walked the back hallway. That's when I saw it a faint shoe scuff on the linoleum, headed towards the study. Not Walter's. Not mine. The safe was open. I didn't do that, Walter said behind me, voice thin. Inside, the main will was still there, but the pencil-written addendum? Gone. In its place, a note. Folded, plain. You won't need it where she's going. We called Inspector Quinn. He arrived 20 minutes later, coat drenched and patience already damp. I hope this isn't another case of lost silverware, he grumbled. It's a case of stolen silence, I said. He gave me a look. Then read the note. His face changed. Anyone touch this? Just me, I said. With gloves. Prince? Doubtful. She's smarter than that. We questioned Walter again. No new names, no enemies, no debts. But then he said something odd. She hated that clock. Pardon? Margaret. Hated it. Said it reminded her of something unfinished. Why keep it? She said it was a punishment. That she'd know when it was done punishing her. I asked June to look into Ellen's recent travel. One train ticket flagged. Brighton to Croydon. The night Margaret died. I thought she vanished, I said. She did, but people like her don't stay invisible. They just learn to walk in quieter shoes. We found Ellen 3 days later. She was renting a room under a different name, Helen Byers. The landlady described her as pleasant, quiet, smelled of lavender and cigarettes. I waited outside. Quinn knocked. No answer. Then, faintly, a voice from the stairwell. "You'll need a warrant." 10 minutes later, she opened the door. Ellen, or Helen, didn't look surprised. She looked tired. "I didn't take anything," she said. "Not really." "What was on the page?" I asked. She hesitated. It said to leave the clock to the museum, and to tell Walter it was never his to begin with. "Then whose?" "My mother's. Margaret's sister, the one who didn't make it past the war." "And the rest of the inheritance?" "Went to Walter. All of it. I didn't want that. I just wanted the truth not to be buried with her." She looked down. "That clock rang because she wanted me to find it, but I was too late." I stepped closer. "She didn't want revenge. She wanted acknowledgement." Ellen nodded. "And now I've taken even that away." I returned to Walter's house alone. The front door creaked like it resented my return. The house, always too quiet, now felt like a room exhaling. Walter was in the parlour, staring at the clock. "She left no more notes," he said, eyes fixed. "I didn't come for paper," I said. "I came for the clock." I opened its glass face. The hands still sat at 11 to 8, but now I looked deeper past the rusted gears, behind the dust, and there it was. A thin crease in the brass panel at the back, barely a breath wide. I reached in and pried gently. A compartment opened, small, hidden. Inside, a folded slip of parchment. I unfolded it. The handwriting was Margaret's, faint, wavering, just a few lines. "If this chimes, he's finally ready to hear it." I lied about the clock. I lied about the will. I lied because I loved him more than I trusted the truth. Let the sound be my confession and my release. I handed it to Walter. He read it once, then again, then folded it neatly and placed it in his breast pocket as if it belonged to the weight of his heart. "She said she never lied to me," he said. I didn't correct him. Some things are heavier than truth. Outside, June waited by the car. "Let me guess," she said. "A final twist?" "Final enough," I said. She wasn't punishing him. She was punishing herself. For what? For staying too long, for giving up too much, for letting silence fester. And the clock? "It wasn't a warning," I said. "It was permission." We sent a copy of Margaret's note to Ellen. She replied with a telegram. "Tell her the clock served its purpose. It brought the truth back into the room. That's all she ever wanted." Walter donated the clock a week later to the Croydon Museum of Timekeeping. On the plaque he requested one line: "Silence is not always stillness." I visited it once. The hands were still frozen at 11:08, but they'd cleaned the wood, polished the brass, made it look proud again. It never chimed in public, but sometimes I imagine it still does. Just once, at midnight, When someone's finally ready to hear what was always waiting to be said,